Olá a todos, sejam mais uma vez bem-vindos aqui ao Cripto TV e eu trouxe hoje aqui o Pierre Corbin, ele que criou o documentário The Great Reset, que vocês devem ter visto no canal Planeta Bitcoin. Se não viram, deixarei o link aqui embaixo. E esse documentário, ele foi totalmente dublado para o português. Então, agora eu vou fazer uma entrevista com ele para que ele possa explicar melhor tudo o que ele colocou lá no documentário e qual que é a visão dele a respeito de toda essa comunidade do Bitcoin. So, Pierre, welcome.
Hello. Yes, thank you. Hola todos. Happy to be here.
Okay, it's really great to have you here. So, well, I'm gonna start. We have already talked about. I'm gonna be making you 19 questions about your documentary, about yourself, and creating the documentary. So we want to know your perspective on everything that you've done. Okay, so shall we start?
Yes,
Okay.
let's do it.
So the first question: why did you decide to leave work and to focus only on this Bitcoin-related stuff?
Yeah, so that's I was maybe getting a bit bored at work. You know, there was the whole COVID, so it was only work from home, and it was getting a bit too repetitive, and just had more time and just had an increasing interest in Bitcoin. So, you know, I was getting bored at work. There was nothing at work that would lead to working with Bitcoin. And at some point, I was tired of working for big corporations and thought it would be better to try and do something in what I think is the thing that matters the most in the world right now for a positive future, which I think is Bitcoin. So, just try to get out and try and do something in Bitcoin.
And you worked with, so people can know.
Sorry, worked what?
With what you worked more specifically in what?
So I was a consultant in technology. So for Accenture, so they're like a big consulting company.
Yeah,
I was just a management consultant there and working on any kind of stuff. Really, I went from like just communications to automations to programming, like just any kind of tech-related needs that these big corporations needed, like Microsoft and such.
Okay, so for the second question, what has inspired you the most in this Bitcoin universe?
So after working now, doing a first project in Bitcoin, I think just the community is inspiring. I mean, the fact that like you guys did the translation of my film, that's the kind of things that I think is just inspiring because so I've never worked with people that are so passionate about the same thing, and it's really about Bitcoin. It's not about being passionate for a corporation, being passionate for technology. Like Bitcoin is so much more than that, right? Because there's Bitcoin, the technology, but then there's the saving asset, and then there's the whole culture that goes with it, long-term thinking, and being able to work with people that think the exact same way is interesting. That's and I don't think that any other community like Bitcoin's community exists.
And it's worldwide. If you look at it, it's like every country there's someone like this.
Yeah, and there's always someone to meet and always someone to. That's something that last time when I was traveling in Spain, in Barcelona, just finding on Telegram a group of Bitcoiners. Actually, my girlfriend did that, which was pretty cool. And just reach out, and just you end up meeting Bitcoiners from different places, and it's cool. Wherever you go, you can find that.
Yeah, that's really nice. So, next question: what was the idea behind creating a documentary on Bitcoin?
So I spent some time just wondering what can I do? So I want to work in Bitcoin, but what does it mean, right? It's so just thinking. I have different skills, I could do some programming, I could like do some general communications, and and I don't know. I was always into film, and after watching one documentary and reading one paper about Bitcoin and the economy, it just gave me the idea of like, okay, this is a great documentary format that I think I can reproduce. And this is a great paper that could be done as a film, but just with much more details. This paper in particular was a paper written by Dylan Leclerc that works for Bitcoin Magazine. And he was just comparing what Ray Dalio says in his video, How the Economic Machine Works, and Bitcoin for the future. So I reused a few of these elements in my film, and this was the guide idea. And then I just added a lot of information. So there's that. And then the documentary that inspired me is called Inside Job. And it's a documentary about the global financial crisis of 2008 and how it happened. And it's very nice. I really recommend watching it. So that's what inspired me, both things. And I thought, okay, maybe I can try.
And it was really nice, your documentary, by the way.
Thank you.
So while developing this documentary, what was the most difficult part, in your opinion?
I think just trusting myself, and like because it's the first time I did something like that, right? And it's also always a bit funny. I guess that when you create content and you put yourself out there, and like it's a bit it can be a bit stressful.
Yes.
You feel like you're not the right person for that. You feel like there's a lot of questions, like maybe I'm doing this wrong, or like and so I think this was kind of the more difficult part, because other than that, if it's just me doing the research, writing, like this is kind of easy for me. I'm good at that. It's okay. Doing visuals, I'm also pretty good at it. And then it's just me alone on my computer, right? So that's not the so hard, surprising part. I think it's just a matter. It's time and research. So that part is easy, but the whole, how do I go about it alone? This is the hard part.
Yeah, by yourself, it's really easier. But when you put your work out there, like the last time I saw your documentary, it had maybe 600,000 views on YouTube. So it's like too many people watching you.
And that's on my channel, because total.
Yes,
YouTube,
it's
on
your channel.
Almost 1.2 million views. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's like a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So now getting more specifically, more technical into the documentary, do you think future laws and regulation might affect Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency, and to which extent?
So I think it's I think yes, the laws can affect it, but I think only in the short term. So it depends what for Bitcoin, because for crypto, laws can affect it, I think, much more, because they're not as decentralized as Bitcoin is, right? So it means that if there's a limitation on crypto, then it is easier to put control over it. Whereas with Bitcoin, you can put limitations, but you cannot put controls over it, which means that, it may be illegal to use Bitcoin, but you can still use it. And that's, I think, where the difference happens. And this will depend on what crypto and blockchain, I focus on Bitcoin mostly, right? Sure, some stuff is like is more censorship resistant than Ethereum, for example. But in general, I think that's kind of what, and this for Bitcoin, I think, would only be limitations in the short term. I think that in the long term, anyway, people can still use Bitcoin, whatever happens. It's not because you're not allowed to use it that you can't use it, because no one can stop it.
Yes, exactly. It's what I think, but I really wanted to know your opinion on this. Okay. You want to add something?
No, it's okay. Let's continue.
Okay.
I like this shooting of questions. It's fun.
Okay. So, in your opinion, the pandemic and money printing as it occurred worldwide was somewhat of a starting point for people to be skeptical about how money is guaranteed.
Yeah. So I know that for me, that was even it was at the same time when I was, reaching the next level of digging and understanding Bitcoin. And it's at the same time as there was the pandemic. You know, this is when I got back a lot more. I had more time, just spent a lot of time working on it. And I think it was just so obvious to see all of this, and the whole community was talking about it so much. And I think that this is it accelerated it for sure, right? Because just in the US, during the pandemic period, the amount of Bitcoin that was in circulation increased by 30%. Yeah, so like it's huge numbers, and this wouldn't have happened because of without the pandemic. So I mean, maybe, right? And we never know. But the pandemic definitely accelerated it, right? Because there was this need for money because governments decided to shut down everything. So governments needed more money to do stuff. And it definitely accelerated things and opened this idea to more people that actually, like infinite money, no, that can't work, you know?
Yeah, it's exactly what I think, because not everybody is thinking about money. But when you start talking about this money printing and creating money and giving all these checks they gave during the pandemic, you start to, at least some people start to question themselves about where does this come from and how is this guaranteed? How is this made? And at least for me, when I started searching about this, it made sense. And even making sense, I thought like, well, I should be going towards something more like Bitcoin, because you cannot print all that, because, well, it's kind of scary, I'd say.
Yeah, I think this is me up until, so there was a lot about Bitcoin that I understood, but I had trouble understanding the importance of 21 million. And this is like one of the most important elements of Bitcoin, right? Because there's just this mathematic rule that there will never be more of this, but always more cash, which means that Bitcoin will always be worth more than the value of cash. And this, before crazy amounts of money printing like we've had now, I never understood this relationship. And I think that it's true for a lot of people.
Exactly, I think the same. But a lot of people still have to get more in touch, I'd say, with this economic side of things. But, well, we'll get there eventually, I'd say.
And there's, even I studied finance. I have a master's degree in finance. And it's not something that they teach you like that at university, It's like, you don't really mention it, It's like, what matters more is just corporate finance, accounting, like this kind of stuff. But you don't learn the core principles of what is finance and these economic principles that are like ground zero. They're the basic way our economy works, but no one explains that. And I have friends that work in the financial industry and like investment banks or investment funds, and they don't understand that either. The only thing that matters is more fiat, more profit. And they don't even try and go out to understand this world.
Yeah, I've seen some here in Brazil, in this case, some economists saying this, that it's not common for everybody to talk about how money is like printed by the government, and the fact that printing more money will make it less valuable and all the things like this. Well, we hope to get this message to more people.
Yeah, that's what we have to try doing, right? Just education about these topics. Yeah, but it's hard because it has to be in a fun way, because unless you're into crypto and Bitcoin, I mean, no one is like, you're not going to watch a show like yours, right? And that's the hard part. That's, to bridge the gap. And because if you're interested, then of course you're going to learn about it. Yeah. And that's the hard part about find the people that are not interested in the topic and try and explain them that. But that's, it's just time, I think.
Yeah. And even if the person is like into finance, but maybe some older people, I'd say, like my dad, for example, if I try to explain to him how money really works, and he gets skeptical all the time.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, the same thing with my dad. Like really, really, really. It's in the end we end conversations saying we don't agree on the source of inflation. And I say, but how can we disagree? Like that's just how it works. Like what are you talking about?
Exactly. It's like it's really complicated, but
Yeah.
well, I think society will eventually get there.
Yeah, I
I
think
hope
so.
so.
Mm.
So, okay, for the next question, yeah, we kind of touched on this topic. So,
Hmm.
what is keeping most people from understanding that the fiat system is flawed?
I think there's I think there's maybe different levels, you know. There's the higher level where it's in their interest for the fiat system to be flawed, right?
Yeah,
Because you know, there's the idea that if we have an inflationary world, and you understand how this inflationary world works, then you understand that you need to grab as much fiat as possible, as quickly as possible, as often as possible. Yeah, and I think this creates like a situation where there can be a lot of greed. You know, we see it with like banks and how this is their only motivation, and big corporations, and so I think that's like the higher level. And then I think when you go down in society, everyone else is either trapped psychologically in thinking that we need to obtain the same goal, or they just don't have time to think of what is actually going down, you know, and they don't have time, not because you know, they work too much. It's also because they
yeah,
just have too much stimulus around them that blocks them from looking at all these things. Yeah, I mean, if you think of what is being put at people's disposal. Yeah, in the Roman Empire, they created the arenas with gladiators. Yeah, you give this to the people, they are entertained, and they don't care of what is happening and what is wrong in their society.
yeah,
So I think there's, you know, there's part of all of these things, and people, you know, don't realize it, which I think is normal. But that's just how our world works, I guess. But I think this is also changing little by little, right? Because now we have the internet that is, it opens up communications, and people can just see more content and learn more easily than they could. If you think my parents' generation, they couldn't just have an idea or a question and go find the answer. They couldn't, you
oh
know.
god,
It was impossible. Whereas now you wonder how does something work, you can just Google and like spend half an hour researching and you already have an okay idea about something.
yeah,
So I think, you know, little by little, this is just going to change.
yeah. Okay, so for the next question, do you think it is kind of contradictory that people like Charlie Munger, as I've watched it, as he stated in the documentary, that printing money is problematic, but he doesn't see a deflationary asset as a good investment because he talks about Bitcoin not being a good investment, and but he states this, he says this like explicitly in your documentary that printing money is problematic. It's exactly like that. Do you think
Yeah.
it is kind of contradictory on his
It
part?
Yeah, it is. But I think so at the same time, if you think of Berkshire Hathaway, where Charlie Munger works right together with Warren Buffett,
Yep.
they never liked gold. Yeah, they and Warren Buffett spoke so many times about it, saying that gold is like, if you took all of the gold that exists in the world and put it in one place, you would have a big rock, and it's just a rock. And according to him, it doesn't actually have value or bring value. But I think this is a lot because of they are in the category of people that are thinking in the upwards part of the category that I was saying earlier. For them, what matters is fiat, and what they need to do is grab as much fiat as possible, as quickly as possible. And I think that's kind of why, if they're in the business of grabbing fiat and they're good at it, then they don't need to go and check into like these potential stable things. I think, you know, that's kind of what's happening, and it is contradictory, right? But at the same time, maybe it's just an acceptance. This is how our system works. The only thing we have to do is try and mine as much fiat as possible. and that's what they're doing. Now, also, they're in a great position where they benefit a lot from the fiat system.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, you know, something like Bitcoin that goes against the fiat system goes against a lot of what they're doing. I mean, if you think about it, they're a company that got super rich thanks to companies like Coca-Cola. It's like, it's the type of company that is typical fiat company, right? They're like, it's like just like big scale, make it cheap, bad quality, just to be able to sell as much as possible in just some plastic shitty containers. Like, you know, it's the typical fiat example. And they're one of the biggest investors in Coca-Cola for decades. So I think, you know, it's just a different mindset based on their position.
Yeah, they are from a different generation first, and they are already billionaires in fiat. So it's kind of hard to talk bad about what made you a billionaire in this way. So
yeah, exactly. And I think also, you know, for people in our position, it's also like we can't disrespect them either, you know, like
no,
they made it in our system the way it works. Now, is it a fair system? Maybe not, but up until now, even if they wanted to do something about it, they couldn't really, you know. Now there's Bitcoin and something can be done about our system.
Yeah.
But before that, it was just the fiat system and no one could do anything about it.
And I think it's really nice that he sees this money printing as a problem. I think it may be the first step. I don't know, for someone like older or something like this to understand.
Yeah, you know, I think they still try and, you know, they spend some time studying it, I think. Maybe not enough time. I mean, it's either two things. Either they spent not enough time to properly understand it, or they spent enough time, they really understand it, and it goes against them. So they prefer, you know, shit talking.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the next question being, are CBDCs or central bank digital currencies a threat to the individual, or they can really solve the debt problem?
You know, I think it's maybe a bit of both. I mean, solving the debt problem, I think what can happen more is by transitioning people to CBDCs, just make people not see the debt problem anymore. You know, I think that's kind of how it can go. They won't actually have a solution to it because the debt will still be there, just somewhere in the background, right? CBDCs can just be a way to make sure that normal people, you know, voters, like citizens, they just kind of forget about everything that is happening there because they're anyway transitioning into this new financial system. Now, the thing though is that in doing this, they open up, a lot of problems for individuals. I mean, I think 100% that CBDCs are a threat for citizens, for individuals. They should not happen, and people should avoid adopting them if they can, and they should choose Bitcoin.
Exactly. And the thing is, I think most of the world is going towards CBDCs right now. Like everybody's talking. European Union.
So the European Union, I think they're one of the countries that like has the most interest in using CBDCs because like I think one of the risks that they have is with stable coins and the fact that right now the euro against the US dollar is going down. And I think that, you know, it won't take too long until normal people start thinking, wait, I have to get out of the euro. And they start buying dollars. Now, the thing is that governments, they can, you know, put some rules on your banks. They can limit how much euro you change for a dollar because, of course, if people do this, it will make the price of the euro go down even more. And you know, it's not good for the local economy. But there are stable coins like USDC, USDT that are much easier to buy because a bank can't block you, right?
Even though they are centralized.
They are centralized, yeah. But right now, anyone can buy them on the open market, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is a risk for the Eurozone. And I think that's one of the reasons why they are more interested in pushing CBDCs. The US, they have, it's less important for them, because if people go from their local currency or the euro to a US dollar stablecoin, they're still using the US dollar. It's still positive for the US status.
And kind of, they are kind of regulated. They don't have any laws on CBDCs, on stablecoins at the moment, but USDT and USDC, if any law would appear, it would be an US law that would regulate or change anything about those. So I think it's a win for them in any way.
Yes, exactly. Agreed. Yeah, so it's interesting to see how this will develop. I hope to be able to explain this to as many people as possible, so they understand, like, as soon as there's like some CBDC something in your own country, like a red light will appear. Yeah, I think in Brazil actually there's something somewhat.
It's a payment system. Yeah, it's a payment system. It's called Pix, and it's like you have no charges at all. You don't pay anything, and you transfer money from your bank account to someone else's. And the thing that does this transfer is from the central government. But at the moment, they do not charge you. They don't track you. They say they don't track you, and so on. But the thing is, this is the first step towards a CBDC. We use the normal money, and we use their platform, this Pix platform, to transfer the money. So we are using less banks to transfer, because when you use a bank, you have to pay, and using Pix, you pay nothing. So a lot of people are using this. But the thing is, if at any time I think I'm gonna start tracking these people here, or maybe charging them whatever $1, then this will be kind of a problem. Yeah,
because it's basically it's a first step towards bringing people to an even more centralized financial system, right?
Yeah.
So and it's a matter of them doing one software update, and that's it. Everything is tracked, right?
And the other great problem is everybody's getting used to it, and they are like really used, because it really helps. You don't have to pay as you had to before, and it's great that you don't have to pay. And it's like really simple. You scan QR codes. You just type an address, maybe. It's like a social security number here in Brazil, maybe your phone number, and then money is sent, and it's at the same time, it's instantaneous, I'd say. I don't know if this word exists, but the money is transferred like at the right time, and the other people get it at the same time. So people are getting used to it, and going back would be problematic. So I think CBDCs will be like this. Like, it will be good at the beginning, but when you start to think about it, well, you're already into it.
Yeah. So I think, maybe what will be interesting is just seeing what. So on Bitcoin, on the Lightning Network, I think last week they released the update that stable coins will be able to be transferred through the Lightning Network. And I think maybe this is an elegant in between, because it allows for peer-to-peer transactions that cannot be monitored, and it allows to exchange something else than Bitcoin, which I understand that for some people it's also important. There's a lot of countries that have huge adoption of stable coins because their currency is going to shit and they prefer holding US dollars, right? And Bitcoin is still very much like this. So, I mean, I understand how it can be attractive for 80% of the population of the world. So, and maybe that's an elegant in between two CBDCs. We'll see.
Yeah. But in any way, if you if you think it's important to be a citizen and vote in your country, you should run a node. It is really, it's really important because it helps a lot. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, for the next question. Okay, is Bitcoin the best alternative answer to the world debt problem?
So I don't know about this, I think because in the sense that like the world debt problem is going to stay a problem. I think Bitcoin is just a solution for people to protect your own assets. Yeah. But the world debt problem is still going to be there, right? Now, the thing is that it's getting so big of a problem that we know it's going to, pop. And it's starting to happen now, right? And I think that, and we see it a lot because all the currencies are like going down.
Yeah.
And from the moment every currency is dropping against the dollar, and the dollar has 8% inflation, it means that like every single fiat is like going down crazy. And I think that Bitcoin isn't necessarily a solution to the global debt problem, but because this is going to happen anyway, but it is something that people can use in order to solve their own financial problems and protect their assets there. Now, if you think in the long term, if our world were to move to something like a Bitcoin standard, or where Bitcoin is used everywhere, then I think yes, it could solve the global debt problem, because all of a sudden you can't just create money, you have to work on a budget, because there's 21 million and never more.
Yeah.
So and this means that you just can't create a crazy debt bubble like we have now. It's just impossible. So unless you create your own, fiat or whatever kind of CBDC, shitcoin, whatever you want, but it will always lose against Bitcoin. So, it's possible to create your own debt, but then you're always going to be losing. And I think if we reach the point of global adoption of Bitcoin, then more people will have to be more responsible with and just have a budget.
Yeah. Okay, great. So are the blockchain analysis services such as Chainalysis, which track your spending, good or bad for the users of Bitcoin?
I think I have mixed feelings about this one, because it's on the one side, I think it's good and necessary to be able to get insights on what is happening. I mean, I think it's great, because this is what the blockchain allows us to do. It allows us to have more information on the global general transactions and what is happening. Now, where it's wrong is when it goes down to the detail of like who is doing what, right? Now, I think that anyway, there's ways that are even quite simple to make your Bitcoin anonymous. And I think that it's easy to, if for whatever reason your Bitcoin address is being tracked by one of these, you can easily just transfer this through the Lightning Network, you take it out in a different wallet. You can do different mixes that make your Bitcoin, again, untraceable. And I think that, it's all right in that case, yeah. But you still have to think about it. That's options that don't exist with the banking system, right? So I think, and what's important with these kind of tools, where I think they are interesting, is because everyone can audit the Bitcoin blockchain, right? You can just go on a block explorer. You can create your own block explorer if you want, right? And anyone can go and do these analysis. It's just a matter of knowing a bit of data science and like being good with data. And it allows for anyone to audit anyone. And it means that in a world where Bitcoin will be used and adopted by countries and governments, then anyone can go and audit the government. And I think this is where these kind of tools can come in handy at that point. Because I think that, and it's not the case today, right? But I believe that the fact that El Salvador owns Bitcoin, their Bitcoin addresses should be public information. Yeah. And everyone should be able to go and audit that, right? That's literally one of the points of the blockchain, is you can do a proof of reserves. And I think that it would be, this is what these kind of tools allow. They allow for everyone to audit everyone. And sure, it means you have to be careful because someone can audit you personally, but it means that you can audit other people. You can audit companies, you can audit governments, you can, like, it opens to all of this world. So I think that these tools are needed, but if they're used against individuals, then they're bad. But individuals can protect themselves and without any problem. Whereas a government, I don't think should use the same tools, in the sense that if you think of the El Salvador government, the fact that they hold Bitcoin and that you can see what Bitcoin they have can just increase the trust you can have in the government. So everyone should be able to audit it. If something changes, you can get a flag, you know, it can be automated, you can just see it. And all of a sudden, you know, the government did something, it's weird, and they shouldn't be doing it, right? Because they're just supposed to hold their Bitcoin. And in that case, you know, everything can be tracked down to them. And I think there's a lot of power there to keep governments and, well, accountable and make sure that we don't get into some crazy spending and global debt issues that we have.
Yeah, and at least in our case in Brazil, corruption, like, it happens a lot. So if you had something like this, well, it's in Bitcoin and it's a public blockchain, so you can see what's going on, and people cannot do as many things. So
yeah, so it depends. Yes, I agree, but it depends what form of corruption there would be, right? Because the thing at the same time is that anyone can receive. I mean, you can just create a new wallet. And
yeah,
this, let's say I can have two wallets. One of them is like my official wallet where I receive my money from, like, my pay, my salary from the government, let's say, if I work for the government. And then I can have my secret wallet. And this is where I call it my corruption wallet. So, you know, and then you can go and, like, mix all of this and have, like, clean Bitcoin, clean.
Yeah.
So, you know, to some extent it can block it, but in other cases, I think it just counts. But
yeah,
would
be nice if we could, like, audit all of the government expenses. In this
I think
case,
this is where there would be a lot of value, right? Or I don't know. Same thing for how do you call it? Like NGOs, you know, non-profit organizations that are helping, right? Like, same thing, you know, there's been a lot of, like, questioning as to how the funds are actually used, how, like, and this way everything could be audited all the way. Basically, it's just a matter of tracking the transactions and what addresses belong to whom. And in theory, these NGOs, they work only with people that should be okay with tracking these Bitcoin addresses, because, I mean, it should be just a requirement to open up, you know, this information, and for anyone to be able to audit too. You know, it's, if you're running business or, you know, an NGO in the right way, then you have nothing to hide, basically. And it can be a benefit for you as a company or an NGO to open source and, like, be completely transparent with all of these transactions and how they're happening, because it just makes you more trustworthy, and people will want to give to you more than to others.
Exactly. It's a really nice adoption. I haven't thought of it like that, but okay. So for the next question, should Bitcoin layer 2s be incentivized?
So incentivized, how do you mean? Like,
people use more of them, like.
Yeah. So and should they, right? So I think so. I mean, it depends what we're talking about, right? Because there are some layer 2s that I'm not sure what to think of. I mean, they're doing some really great stuff, like the Liquid network, that allows, you know, to create tokens that work on the second layer. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's the road towards shitcoin. But at the same time, it can allow the use of certain technology that is being built in the crypto world. But it can also be built in Bitcoin in that case. And maybe there's some value there, you know, like, so I'm not a fan of NFTs, for example, but there's clearly right now, it seems, you know, we'll see in the long term, but there seems to be a market for that and a need for that. And I think there can be some use cases. yeah, I mean, debatable, but there could be some use cases in the future, you know. I think it would be better for, if there's a market for that anyway, for this to happen on Bitcoin rather than happening on some centralized, you know, Ethereum. So I think that's kind of where there could be a space for them. But I think where there's mostly interesting things is with the Lightning Network and what can be built on top of the Lightning Network too, right? So the Lightning Network is a layer 2, but there can be layer 3s built on top of the Lightning Network, right? And I think this should definitely be incentivized, because I think that, you know, down the road, this is how Bitcoin can scale. And also the Lightning Network could be what is used by individuals, right? Like you and me to go and pay for our coffee. But at a corporate level, at a company level, government level, then it would be more the bigger transactions that have to be recorded on the blockchain for auditing reasons. You know, the fact I go buy my coffee, it's no one's business. Yeah, no one should care about that, and no one should be able to see that. But the fact I buy a house, maybe the fact that the government spends on something, you know, we've talked about that, right? Or like a company, same thing. For them, it can make their auditing easier. It can, you know, it's like the kind of things that I think are a solution for us on the Lightning Network that are not necessarily for big corporations and their accounting processes and auditing processes. So yeah, so I think layer 2 should be incentivized, as long as they're true to, you know, being Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think the whole community will get in touch with the best like Lightning Network layer 2s, and they will kind of just don't use the ones that are not related to the Bitcoin ethos. So
yeah,
I think the whole community will get a track of it, like nicely.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so for the next question, you say in the documentary that anyone can mine Bitcoin, but to participate in Ethereum's network, you must have at least 32 ETH, which is a lot of money today. And the fact that a Bitcoin mining rig costs more than that wouldn't be a problem if you wanted to start mining?
So, I mean, yeah, a Bitcoin mining rig is quite, I mean, now the price did go down actually.
Yeah.
But I think that, and okay, so that's a difficult one, right? But it happened a few times, in fact, this summer, that someone with just some like GPU miners mined an entire block just by himself, right? And that's like 6 Bitcoin that go like straight into your pocket. Now, the odds of this are very small, right? Like if you're fighting against the big miners, like, you know, all that have hundreds of thousands of miners, all like competing with each other, like it's it makes it a lot harder, right? But I think that it's not limiting like to mine Ethereum, because to mine Ethereum like now, yeah, you have to block 32 Ether. That's like, I don't know, what's the price of Ethereum now? We're at like $40,000. If we, you know, 32 Ether, I think is around $40,000, right?
Oh, my, here's showing like, yeah, it should be something like $1,100 at the moment.
Right.
So
yeah. So in that case, and if you have 32, right, it's because I'm taking that too. Yeah. So 32 Ether, that's $42,000. Yeah. And so first, that's a lot of money, right? Like the top Bitcoin mining rigs cost like 10,000, 11,000, right? And this is like, you know, an Antminer S19 Pro, like they're excellent machines, right? So it's so much, I mean, with the same price that you need in order to just buy the Ethereum that allows you to become a miner, you can already have like 4 mining rigs. More if you buy secondhand, and like, you know, they will have slightly less hash power, but enough to be competitive. And so you can already get mining. Whereas if you, I mean, in order to start mining Ethereum, you really have to start an operation. You can't just do it at home, you know, and because it's not worth it, you know, it's just so much money. Whereas Bitcoin, it's still worth it, you know, you can buy your S19, you just plug it in and let it be, and it pays back after a certain amount of time. And yeah, and I think, so it's still much better than this Ethereum proof of stake option. That just lowers the competition, right?
No, yeah, I think it's not even a discussion. If you really look into proof of work and proof of stake, it's like you don't even need to discuss. If you understand the technology, there's no need to talk about it. But in any way, I just wanted to make this question because you talked about it.
No, of course. Yeah, for sure. And I think, maybe there's a place for proof of stake, but it's not for the future of our monetary system. It's for like corporate solutions, stuff companies need, but not for the future of our monetary system, I think.
Yeah, I think the same, by the way. So, next question. Is energy spending by the Bitcoin network something we should worry about?
I think no, for two reasons. I think, first of all, that it's the industry that has the cleanest mix of energy in the world, right? So this is like the first big well, no, we shouldn't, because clearly, compared to other industries, including the financial industry, like banks, Bitcoin is still much cleaner. Yeah, and so that's point one. And the reason for that is point two, which is the fact that and I covered that in my documentary a bit, is that miners need the cheapest energy, and the cheapest energy is in renewable energy. And because in the long term, if adopted properly, renewable energy, the price is going to go down towards zero. And Bitcoin is, I think, actually the technology that can unlock that, because it makes it worth it. It makes it worth having a huge amount of energy. So I think we should, welcome the Bitcoin energy consumption, especially that it's so much smaller than what the media talks about, right? It's it's just one point to shit talk Bitcoin.
I just wanted you to know that I really agree with you. I wanted to talk about it. I put it as a question just so people that were listening to us could understand your idea. And I think the same. I have rated social media posts about this, and it's the same thing that you just showed, because the most renewable energy used by any place in the world is using Bitcoin mining. And well, if you look at all the advancements in the history of humanity, the consumption of energy, it always goes up. And why only now and only with Bitcoin people want you to spend less energy?
Yeah, I think it's, a lot of it is because there's just this idea, and I agree with it, and a lot of it is because of our fiat system. It's just this idea of we consume so much. And I don't mean energy, I mean everything, right? And we're clearly a consuming society, and the fact that we have an inflationary system makes us want to consume even more, right? And I think because of that, a lot of people in their mind, they just have the thought that actually maybe we should consume less. And to consume less, we need to produce less. And for some reason, they just wrap the energy idea into the same thing. Because energy is just like, I don't know, some headphones or something, right? It's just so, and I think they just wrap everything together into one place. Because I had conversations with people that I think are, intelligent people. They're great developers, for example. And when we were talking about the topic of energy, they were telling me that, well, no, we should produce less energy. And I say, but why? Especially if you think at the scale of the whole world, so I'm in Europe, right? We're privileged. We have, although now it's so for this winter, right? We were always privileged with the amount of energy that we have available. But if you think of the global energy that is being produced, we need to go way beyond that if we want everyone to live at the same standard. So if you're telling me that we should produce less energy than we're producing, it means that you're promoting the fact people that live in less in countries, third world countries that have less have less energy, that it's okay and they can remain like that. So I think, and then they completely disagree. They're like, well, no. I think we should all have equal opportunities. Well, then let's all have equal energy.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
but I think a lot of it is biases. That people get played in their head because they're just repeating news. They're repeating stuff they heard, or they mix it in the bag of overconsumption.
Yeah, many issues to that. So, okay, for the next question, is the disappearing of Satoshi good or bad for Bitcoin, in your opinion?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's so. I mean, first off, it creates like such a world of stories. You know, like everyone can imagine like what happened, what is happening, who is it, and I think this makes it very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's number one. But also number two is the fact that it's just it pushed it on the community, you know, and it made it not belong to one person, but it made it belong to everyone. And I think this is like the important thing in Satoshi Nakamoto and his disappearance. I think that's the number one thing, is that it was just given to people to manage it.
Yeah, I think the same. I think it's great that he disappeared, and it would be greater if he does not show up.
Yes, so I think it could, if he were to show up, it could, at least in the short term, it could really impact the price of Bitcoin. It could, because he has like around 2 million Bitcoin that are locked up on somewhere. So like, you know, if all of a sudden he actually does reappear, then it would raise the case of like, well, actually, there's more Bitcoin than the 19 million that like we're expected to have right now. Yeah. I mean, at the end, in total, there will be 19 if, you know, minus Satoshi's Bitcoin.
Yeah. Okay. So for the next question, was Bretton Woods the end of the dollar, the US dollar?
So I think if we look back, then the answer, I think, is yes, because that's what changed the rules and made it just this huge fiat system that for sure would be inflationary and would lead to the situation we're at today. And that's all based on what happened in Bretton Woods.
Okay.
Yep. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we got lost for a second. Yeah. So basically, Bretton Woods was the start of that. This is when these decisions were made that, you know, created the situation we're in today. But at the same time, it's because of the decision they made with Bretton Woods that the dollar spread and was able to become such a big currency. So, you know, it's a like, at the moment of Bretton Woods, the answer is no, because it's Bretton Woods that allowed the US dollar to be, you know, to spread and to be built and become what it is. But today, yes, it is Bretton Woods that created the end of the US dollar.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of running because we are almost at 1 hour.
9 minutes left. Yeah. I talk a lot, you know, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I made a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so is making Bitcoin legal tender better or worse for its adoption? Countrywide, I'd say, in a nation, but
yeah. So there's on one side, I think it is, like, the fact that El Salvador did that, because it just, you know, really pushed Bitcoin adoption in one place, and it put everyone's eyes on Bitcoin and in this test experiment of actually it could work as a legal tender, and what would this be? But at the same time, you know, like, Bitcoin is this technology that is built from the ground up. You know, it's the plebs adopt it. Yeah. And because of pleb adoption, it goes up into the levels of society. And that's the big factor of Bitcoin. You know, that's why it inverses the pyramid we have of who owns what, and it gives more power to the plebs, I think, to start this way. But at the same time, it, you know, allows to accelerate this process. So, you know, a bit of mixed feelings, I guess, about that, because it shouldn't be pushed onto people. But then again, you know, the way El Salvador did it, in fact, they didn't push it onto people. There's just two currencies, and you should have the choice of what you prefer using, whether it's dollar or Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it should be best if people could choose, but like letting it flow, you can use Bitcoin whatever in any way you want would be really nice.
Yeah, but I think it's that's the harder way of adopting Bitcoin too, I think, you know, because governments are used to And people too, actually, if you think about it, people are used to a government telling you what currency you're supposed to use.
Yeah.
And so
Makes sense.
at the same time, I think, because this is how it is, right? A government can just change currency, and because they decide it, everyone is going to adopt it, right? So, maybe the first few countries that push adoption of Bitcoin just by making it legal tender the way El Salvador could have done it, then maybe it's a positive and will help adoption. But yeah, I think that the next countries after that, for the stage 2 of nation state adoption, should be just open kind of approach rather than legal tender. But yeah, we'll see how it all develops.
Yeah, it's a great discussion, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, so 18th question. There's this.
All right. Oh, okay. We're actually going fast through it.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah.
Could the government change or halt the growth for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? It kind of goes with one of the first questions I did.
One of the first questions. Yeah. So can it change or
halt, like hold the growth of Bitcoin?
Yeah. So similar to the other question at the beginning, I think I think it can, obviously, but only in the short term. Yeah.
Exactly. So for the last question,
wow, nice.
More in time than I would expect for us to be, but okay. Could you tell us about the next movie or documentary that you might be planning?
Yeah. So the working title is The Fight for the US Dollar. And the idea is, rather than... So in the first one, The Great Reset and the Rise of Bitcoin, the focus was mostly on allowing people to understand the economic system and why it's important for them to understand it, especially inflation, right? Because this is what happens because of this system. And then present Bitcoin as a potential solution for individuals. Now, in this film, what I want to do is talk more at a higher level and allow people to understand the importance of Bitcoin at a geopolitical level. And for that, I think the best approach is to explain the people that are fighting to protect the system as we have it today. And so the system we have today, globally, the way our monetary system works is through the dollar, right? And the different ledgers that they have, which is the petrodollar, the eurodollar, etc. And so, being able to explain these in one documentary, and so this explains kind of how we arrived to the status we're at today, and why for so many people it's important to defend that status, right? So the fight for the US dollar, and what I want to focus on is particularly Central America, because this is where El Salvador is, and this is where the biggest Bitcoin adoption is happening. And this is where the US government, for example, is actually trying to block the Bitcoin adoption. So, being able to look at the global space around that, but focusing on Central America, because this is where there's the most stories around blocking Bitcoin today. And the idea being to show that these people are trying to block Bitcoin, and it's a bad thing. We think as Bitcoiners, it's a bad thing. And so for the remaining part of the film, to then explain to the people watching that if they're blocking Bitcoin, it's them actually blocking freedom, and explain why and what the future of our world with Bitcoin could look like. So, this is like in the works now. We received actually this week, we received our first bigger donation of $10,000.
Wow.
All raised in Bitcoin, and there should be more coming. But this, I'll announce it as it comes. So, we're like actively raising money. We're doing a fundraiser on Geyser, which is a Bitcoin fundraising platform where everyone can donate in Bitcoin. So anyone watching, if ever you have a few Satoshis that you want to give away, don't hesitate. You can just find our project there and donate even just 1 sat. It helps a lot.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. So for today, for this interview, that's all I had in terms of questions. And I really wanted to thank you. Do you want to add something else, or it's fine that you...
Yeah, no, I think, just for anyone watching, just to, like, support us, go follow us, and see what we're trying to put out there, especially for, the Brazilian audience. Like, that's kind of, Central America, Latin America, they're in the same historic context when it comes to relationships with
Yeah.
US. And I want to put content out there that your audience, Brazilian people, can relate to. And in fact, one of the guys that does research for us is from Brazil too. So hopefully opening up a bit more there with content that can be interesting for you guys too. So yeah, just follow us. You can follow me on Twitter. There's here Pierre Corbin. Wait, can I point it here? That's me on Twitter.
Yeah.
And otherwise, there's the Great Reset Films on Twitter that you can follow, where we share everything.
Okay, so I'm gonna need you to send me all those links, because I'm gonna be leaving them on the description so people can follow you and donate. You did a really great job, and I'm sure you're gonna do a lot of great jobs in the future. And this is really necessary for the Bitcoin community and all the good things that we might be doing to the world, and we don't even know it yet.
Yes, definitely. That's, I think, a good way of saying it, because we always discover new things with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So we don't even know yet how Bitcoin solves new things.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, thank you for coming. Thank you for letting us talk and make this interview. And this is all going to be translated and will be published in a Brazilian channel on YouTube. But I will also post this in English. So if you also want to share this, it's totally fine.
I'll share everything. Brazilian, English, everything.
No, so okay. So it's really great to have you here, and I wish you all the best. Okay.
Yeah, thanks so much, Felipe. I think thanks for what you're doing too, and thanks a lot for having me.